God called us both at the same time. We were single. It was at the 1973 World Missions Conference in Chattanooga with Stuart Briscoe. And he had an altar call the last night for all those willing to do whatever God called you to do. And we both went down. And then later we discovered that we'd both gone down, and we felt that was the way God was leading us in the same direction.
Yeah, we found out, we were talking, and oh, were you there? Yeah, I was there. And she went forward on one side, I went forward on the other, but we didn't realize it for, I don't know, it was maybe a year later.
No, it was a few months.
But the reason we wanted to serve the Lord is because how He had changed our lives, and we felt doing it cross-culturally would be key. We expected to serve in a special way. I was going in the area of community development, and we expected the Lord to guide us. I'm not a big strategic planner, so we've always approached life in a journey mode, so we sort of played it by ear as things went forward.
For me, it was living in a reconverted pig pen. Pigs had been in this stall where we were living, and we just hung our hammocks there. And I'd never even been camping till our honeymoon, so it was a real shock.
Yeah, that was an interesting question, because I think one of the things that became clear is we do adjust well to different cultures. Part of the thing we weren't used to was the missionary culture. And relating to other missionaries we thought would be real easy, and actually ended up being some of the harder part of our missionary journey at the beginning.
The most difficult part of living in a foreign country was being so far away from family. And it was different back then. You only had letters, and they'd take so long to reach family.
I'll have to agree with Gwen. I think being away from family, the internet was not part of the picture when we went out, and you sort of went out, you were gone for 4 years, you sent letters, tried to make phone calls. We used ham radio. I think the other part of it I've always already mentioned, but learning to work well together with your fellow workers. We actually related really well to the national colleagues and national people that we worked with, but it was learning to work with people of different backgrounds, who had different views of how you would approach things. Seven countries, long-term in 4. I've actually served between 70 and 80 countries. So by that, I mean that I've traveled, I've worked there, I've developed partnerships, worked with national organizations mainly, and building capacity. But the countries that we lived long-term in were Indonesia, Ecuador, Singapore. I learned this very early on, and it helped to guide me in the future. I was wanting to take an outboard motor down to the water. This was in Ecuador, and I had some Guarani folks there. They were called Alka or Wadani, and I kept pointing to the motor. I couldn't speak their language to take it downhill. And they just looked at me. And finally, I realized what I was doing. I was trying to tell them what to do, and I was acting like the big boss. I grabbed one side of the motor. They smiled, grabbed the other side. And it sort of helped set the mode for what became my future ministry of working in partnership, collaborating closely with both local, regional, and global organizations and leaders. And that had a huge impact on me. And I've probably told the story at First Pres before, but it taught me a lot about myself, how I needed to become a little more humble.
Well, I think from all the different countries that we've lived in, I just learned that all the different cultures sort of have the same basic needs and wants. And everybody loves their family, and they all need Jesus, and we're basically all the same.
One of the things, I just want to add to this, because one of the things I have found is just being together, being present. That's why this season of COVID has been so hard. Zoom can help. Yes, you can do a lot with technology. But I just went to Nigeria, and being face-to-face, being present, the importance of that in almost every culture is huge. And we see that with Christ himself when he came. There's a verse in O Holy Night that talks about when Christ comes and our soul health its worth. And I think there's something about being together in almost every culture that means a lot.
Well, I think for me, just kind of friendship evangelism, just making friends wherever I go, and then just speaking Jesus into their lives and telling them, sharing with them what Jesus has done in my life. And that's what I think my kind of gift is.
We were talking about spiritual gifts the other day, and what has been a theme, the focus that God really led me to is partnership and collaboration, and the importance of us working as a body. And so I said, my spiritual gift is I show up. And by showing up and by being there, we recognize God's faithfulness, because inevitably he's going to lead, even if we're not quite sure what's going to happen when we show up. I've never had it fail that he hasn't led and guided us during that time.
Well, one of them was when we found out our daughter needed special education. And we realized we couldn't stay in Indonesia because we needed to get where she could get education. So that kind of changed our focus.
Yeah, when that happened, we laid everything out before the Lord. We had to come home. We had been there for 2 terms and wondered if this was the end of our missions career. Laid everything before the Lord, and after we got back, we started looking into things outside of missions, and then somebody approached me and asked me if I would help them in the Americas, developing a new approach. I had already gotten into leadership, which was a big surprise too. Not that I'm not a leader, but in a Bible translation organization when my background is agriculture. It was quite interesting. But God continued to lead, and so we worked for 10 years from the U.S. And showed how I could engage, Wing could engage cross-culturally, even though we had to be in the U.S. for a while. And then, of course, we moved to Singapore and continue to work. That's why we've been in so many countries, and he kept affirming that every stage. That was a big surprise.
I think it kind of opened them up to worldviews, and where they have learned that they can be comfortable in different cultures.
What we see happening in their lives as God has continued to use the impact of other cultures on their lives and God's faithfulness. I think that taught them a lot too about God is faithful. He took us through a lot of different things, and they've carried that on with him. We're thankful that they're all walking with the Lord, and yes, there's been bumps in the road, and there probably will be in the future, but we wouldn't change anything. Changed dramatically when the internet came and we were able to talk immediately, and we saw the impact that that had on how young people coming sometimes didn't really leave home, and that was a little harder. But a big change, I think, has gone from what everybody would say the West to the rest of the world. We used to use the term international, and that really meant missionaries from North America and Europe going throughout the world. Well, that's changed dramatically, and it's changed from the West to the rest to from everyone to everywhere. The other thing that's happening now, which to me is the most exciting, is to see some of our organizational barriers breaking down, where we're in collaboration and working closely with people we wouldn't have gone to church with in the past. And now we're working very close together.
God is faithful. He's been so faithful to us all these years.
There's a song, a really powerful song out right now called Evidence by Josh Baldwin. And it's talking about looking back over your life and seeing the evidence of God's faithfulness throughout. First Pres has been a rock. When we first went to missions, we had to raise about $430 a month. First Pres, that was in Ecuador. And but First Pres has been there all along. Even though we've had churches come and go and everything else, we couldn't have asked for a better home church.
Mm-hmm. And one thing, out of all the places we've lived and gone to church, there's never been a church like First Pres. We haven't found one anywhere we've been.
I looked up the word twilight. It also it's that time between when the sun goes down, but it's also the time when the sun comes up. So in this time, because our health is good, we've decided to continue to serve. Right now I'm working with 3 different missions. We moved to Hawaii to be close to our children and our grandchildren. And I'll let Gwen mention that, but right now I'll continue to mentor and use some of my experiential equity in the people I know to help with the Bible translation movement.
I just plan to continue wherever the Lord leads, and enjoy feeding into our grandchildren, sharing what spiritual wisdom we have with them. And then I've involved with several different ladies groups there in Hawaii, and it's been really neat getting to know all those ladies. My life verse, the Lord gave this verse to me the night I prayed to receive Christ. It's Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens. Yes.
It's
You answer.
Yeah, no, it's been an amazing, there's no doubt in my mind that we would do it again. And every time we reached a transition point, God continued to affirm that. We've never been hungry, and we both have had illnesses that if we were at some other time, we wouldn't even be around right now. So we still got good health. So yes, definitely we would.